Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple. Today we have an SN review. This one is for Ceylon. It's a 2 to 4 player game about making tea plantations. Now that's unique.
Yeah, it's a very interesting theme, and it's a historic theme. I mean, this is based on a real historic location and events that happened.
Yeah, 14th century, which is now known as Sri Lanka, was called Ceylon at the time, and they had some awful fungus that killed off all of their coffee plantations. So a Scottish-born gentleman named James Taylor, of all people, came along with other entrepreneurs to help rebuild it, building tea this time. So now it's one of the best tea exporters in the world.
Yeah.
Go figure. So
yeah, right?
In the game, this is the game board, and we have a 4-player game set up. There are 4 regions in the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all broken up by these particular different rivers that you see here. Each of these regions is going to be built into elevation. So you have level 0, 1, and 2 elevations, which all produce different types of tea.
Right, yeah, the flavor of tea changes based on which elevation it's grown at, which I think is interesting that they abstracted that a little bit, but you're going to earn different types of tea based on which elevation you manage to grow that tea at.
Each of these are modular boards, so it's completely set up randomly. Each of us is going to start in one of these different regions depending upon the starting tiles that you see here. I've been dealt the number 1 tile, meaning that I'm going to be the start player, but also have a 1-time special ability for the rest of the game. And it's going to let me place my figure and a plantation first in one of these 4 different regions. When you do so, you're simply going to take your figure, one of your plantation markers from your board, and one of these plantation circles and place it there. Everyone's going to do that in turn order.
Yeah, and we've kind of got a little bit of a game in progress, but to set up, every player is going to do that. Every player is going to start with 1 black tea cube, $15, and you're going to be dealt 3 cards. And then you're kind of ready to get into the game. But there's a couple of the things on the board we need to talk about.
Yeah, the first thing up here is the contracts. There are always 3 contracts are available. Each of these contracts have numbers on the back of them. Think of these as kind of company names. There's 5 different numbers. Each of these represents 1 of 5 different companies. The idea isn't to get all the same, it's to get a variety of different ones. But as you go up in the number system, they become a little bit harder to deliver to because they need some of the rare teas that will be built through the course of the game. Also, each of these different regions is going to have their own counselor that you're trying to influence. These are important because they're going to give you ongoing benefits the moment that you influence them. Plus, you have to have influence them at the end of the game before you even score points in those regions.
I mean, this is an area control game at its heart, and so ignoring that part of the game means you're not going to score points at the end, and that's pretty huge scoring opportunity.
Each of us is going to have a player board in front of us. On the player board, you're going to have a number of spots that your plantation markers are laid. Also, these are the spots for the contracts once they're fulfilled. You're going to have a place for your tea markers, your money, and any technology tiles. We'll explain technology in a moment. And then all of your in-game scoring is right there on your player board as well. So the game is absolutely incredibly easy to play. Yeah. It's all driven by these cards. These cards have 3 possible actions on them. They have a top action, they have a bottom action, and then in between those, they have a middle action. The middle action for every single card is the exact same, and it's always movement or collecting 2 coin. However, the top and the bottom, there's 5 main actions, and these are all different for every single card. So you may have a different top action from a bottom action. On your turn, it's so simple to play. You're simply taking one of the 3 cards that you've been dealt, and everyone has 3 cards at the start of the game, and you're deciding, do I want to take a top action, do I want to take a bottom action, or do I want to take a middle action? When you make that decision, you're going to place it right here, and this little dot that you see right here signifies what that person is taking. So I would take this action here. Everyone else at the table, kind of like Puerto Rico or San Juan, is going to take the secondary action of that card or the other main action of that card that that player did not take. As we said, there's 5 main actions, and I'll explain the very first one. It's quite possibly the easiest, and it's simply the plant action. Anytime you take the plant action, you have to spend 5 coin, and it's right there on every one of the cards. You spend 5 coins from your supply into the bank, and wherever your figure is, you get to plant in that location. It doesn't matter what elevation it is, it's always $5. You're going to take one of your round markers, place it in this location, and then you're going to take your furthest left plantation marker of your color and place it here. That's your location for the rest of the game.
And each one of those points, regardless of elevation, adds 1 to your control of that particular area.
Exactly. The second thing that you can do is actually harvest.
Yeah, and harvest, once you have plantations out, you can harvest, which will take your player marker, look at every adjacent spot, and see who has plantations adjacent to you. Whoever has an adjacent plantation, you can take a cube from them. So, for instance, since I have all 3 elevations, I could take 1 of each cube. However, when you're taking cubes from a plantation that is not yours, you're giving victory points to that player.
Yep.
Now, you can only hold 5 cubes at the end of your turn. So you don't always want to take from every available plantation. Of course, you want to favor your own if you can, but there are definitely times you're going to have to give those victory points.
Absolutely. And why do you need those cubes? This is what the majority of the game is about. It's about fulfilling these contracts across the top. There's always 3 available contracts, and the upper right-hand portion is going to tell you the company number, and it's going to tell you the 3 types of cubes that are required. In this case, 2 green and 1 white. When you fulfill this, you're going to place it face down on the furthest left spot. Now, if you don't have an available slot, you can't fulfill a contract. Contracts of the same number can stack. So I can have as many 5s in this location as I want. However, if I want a 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's got to go into a new location. It's all about getting variety. But once you fulfill this, you have another decision to make. Across the bottom of every single one of these contracts are 2 options. Either collecting the victory points, in this case 6, or collecting the money, $14. And like I say, both of those are really tight to the game.
Money,
so
money is tight, and money fuels most of your major actions.
Yep.
So you really, I mean, it's never an easy decision, right?
No.
So I have another card, one that actually kind of lets you break one of the key rules of the game.
Yep.
And this is to advance your technology. First of all, you pay $5, and everyone else at the table gets $1. So it's kind of a catch-up mechanism a little bit built in there. You're getting money just for somebody else taking this action. Then you move up 1 space on the technology track and take a technology tile. Now, these tiles are going to be placed on your board, and you can use them a turn if you want to take both actions of a card or to take the main action and that middle action. That's incredibly powerful to be able to take both those actions, really. So you want to take technology tiles for that, plus the technology track is a tiebreaker.
Yep, for everything else in the game, which is super important. The last possible action that you can take is to influence the counselor. This is important for two reasons. One, well, to influence them, number one, you have to be in the same region as the counselor you're trying to influence. So I would pay $5. I'm in this region. I could go ahead and influence Candy. This does 2 things for me. Number one, at the end of the game, I score for majority in this regardless of how many different plantations that I own, but I only score if I have influenced that counselor. Number 2, each of these counselor has their own bonus that they provide for the rest of the game. So influencing these people early is going to give you bonuses for every single action that you get to take through the course of the game.
These tokens are variable, and there are a ton of them that we didn't play. I mean, so you're not seeing the same abilities every time.
Yep. 2 things we should mention that we completely glossed over. Number 1, you can forego the main action of that. And take the middle action. There's 2 things you can do. Collect 2 coins or move. Movement's very simple in this game. Whenever you move from any of these different actions that you see here, you simply get to take your figure and move it to one adjacent location. Over rivers, up any height, that doesn't matter. Every movement after that costs 1 coin, plus 1 coin after that. So to move here, it's free, and then 1 coin, and then another 2 coins, and then another 3 coins, another 4 coins. So the further you move, the more expensive exponentially that it gets.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention real briefly is, once you're done taking your main action, I don't know why we glossed over this. This is the important part. Everyone else at the table gets to take an action that is the bottom part of that card that they didn't choose, or a secondary action. This is cool because it keeps everyone involved in the game at all the time.
Yeah, and you kind of have to decide what you're going to do when you play your card. Sometimes an action that really benefits you, the bottom action might benefit another player more. So you might want to hold on to that one and play it.
Yeah.
So you were talking about moving around the board, and moving around the board is important for a lot of different reasons. For one, like you said, you have to be in a counselor's region to influence them.
Yeah.
2, you have to put plantations in every region to get area control of every region. And 3rd, the first player to score, or to have 1 plantation in every region, scores points. And that's a huge reason to kind of try to spread yourself out.
Yep. At the end of the game, it's going to be triggered in one of 2 different ways. One, if all the cards have been depleted, everyone's going to get the same number of turns. You're going to end with that first player marker. Or if...
Yeah, if every one of these plantation tokens is out on the board.
Yep.
So if you're really pushing out those plantations, you can kind of try to force the game to end if you know you're in the lead. Otherwise, yeah, you're just going to play through that whole deck, and until everybody has played all the cards from their hand as well.
So a majority of the points are going to be scored through the game, and that's from the contracts that you fulfill, but there's a lot of end-game scoring as well. all of it's according to majority, and all of it's broken by the ties on the advancement track. The first one is whoever has the most coin. You're going to look at your player board, and there's a first, second, third, and fourth place for all these things we're going to mention. The most coin is going to score 10 points, and then 6 points, and then 3 points, and then 1 point. The second thing is how far you advance on the technology track. Again, it's 10 points, 6 points, 3 points, and 1 point. Then you're going to score majority control of each of the 4 different districts. Again, you have to have influence with that counselor and then have majority in that area.
Yeah, you have to at least have 1 plantation. So if I have influence and I have 0, I don't get second place for having 0. You have to have at least 1 plantation in each area to score it.
The final 2 things that are going to score for the players are the number of contracts, varied contracts that they have. So again, having a stack of 5s isn't going to help you. I want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. One of them is going to score you 1 point. If you have all 5 of them, it's 15 points.
That's a huge amount of points in this game, actually.
So you want to try to get varied contracts. And then for every one of the plantations that you haven't placed at the end of the game is -2 points. This game is all about timing to me. I feel like, and it's the beauty of the game for me personally, trying to use those cards at the best time is the crux of the game. Because there are times in the game when you want to play a card, or you want to take the secondary action of the card, and you may be the 4th person around the table to take that action, and then all the contract's gone. Or the place you wanted to move has already been occupied and plantation's been there. Or someone's planted a plantation in the location, or someone's harvested. So that you're always wanting to try to time things as best you can.
You don't want to give anybody anything for free.
No.
So you want to play those actions when you know they can't take them. Either they don't have enough money or they're not in the right spot to do so. Now, for me, on the flip side, that's one of the drawbacks. Now, I'll say I like this game a whole lot. There's a lot going on I like. But there are only X amount of cards for each of those actions. If you burn, for example, all those grow cards that let people place plantations down, you're lessening other people's ability to get them, and that is a really important action. You need that to clear your player board to score points. You're going to get negative points if you don't play them. You're not going to be able to put contracts down, and you're going to have to go to other players to get T and give them victory points.
I mostly agree with that. I mean, planting is a very powerful action, but also if you're planting, you're not moving, you're not going up the advancement track, you're not influencing the counselors, because there's another strategy by simply spending your first several turns just influencing and spending all of your money to do that, because every action, or most all the actions after that, are going to give you some kind of influence within the game. And there's a variety of them. This one down here, every time you advance, you get a point. This one is no matter what you do on your contract, whether it's get money or victory points, you're still getting $2. So you want to do those early as well. And that's super important.
Yeah, and you coming back to that timing aspect, which is something I really liked as well, because there are a lot of race elements in this game. You're trying to race to put 1 plantation in every spot. You're trying to race to get to the top. You'll notice there are only 4 spots on the board where you can produce the white cubes, which is the highest elevation. So if you don't get one of those, your only option to get white cubes is to give it to somebody else. Plus, you're racing up the technology tree. I mean, there's a lot of race mechanics, and you have to look around the board and make sure that you're not giving someone the card that they need to overtake you in a certain thing.
I like it. I think it's a beautiful game. I love the timing aspect. I love games where there's multiple multi-use cards in which you have a variety of different actions that you can take on your turn. I love the idea that during every player's turn, you're still involved, and that's huge for games that have a lot of downtime. This one, even though it may not be your turn, you're looking at the cards in your hand, deciding if I use this one, that's going to set me up great for this next card coming up, and I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that you're always, like, turns aren't long, so you're always taking an action. However, again, I don't want to sound like I'm being negative because I love the game, but it does become kind of difficult to keep track of whose turn it actually is. Especially if somebody has a little bit of AP, they're taking a long time to decide how to use that action. You kind of start to think, was it that player's turn, or are they just taking the secondary action? Like, who's actually playing a card next, right? So
I mean, you always know who the first player in the game is, and that's important. You could always pass this thing around and say, okay, it's my action, now it's your turn to take an action.
You'd want to do something like that.
That could be a problem, trying to figure out whose turn it is and who needs to take the next secondary action and so forth.
It's kind of a nitpick. I mean, it's a minor thing because there is a lot going on. I mean, the game is beautiful. It plays quick. It's like at probably max an hour, especially once you've played the game a couple times.
So that is Ceylon. 2 to 4 players coming out of Essen. If you guys have any questions, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do. And we'll catch you guys next time.